حسین الغریب الغریب الحسین حسین الشہید الشہید الحسین حسین الغریب الغریب الحسین حسین الشہید الشہید الحسین دعائے خدا را دعائے یہ دشت بلا میں ہے کیسی تباہی بہایا ہے کس نے یہ خون محمد قیامت یہ دائی ہے کس نے الہی جوانوں بزرگوں کو مارا گیا ہے شہیدوں میں شامل ہے ننھا سپاہی حسین الغریب الغریب الحسین حسین الشہید الشہید الحسین کیا جشن برپا یوں اہل حواس نے شہیدوں کے لاشوں پہ ڈنکے بجائے جلا ڈالے آل محمد کے خیمے سکینہ کے منہ پر تماچے مارے جو بیمار تھا اس کا بستر نہ چھوڑا نبی زادیوں پر بھی درے چلائے حسین الغریب الغریب الحسین حسین الشہید الشہید الحسین اٹھی اپنے مرکز سے بنت محمد سیاہ شب کی چادر میں چہرہ چھپا کر گئی کربلا میں تو اس نے یہ دیکھا ہے بوسیدہ کرتے میں ایک لاش بے سر بدن ساروں تیروں سے چھلنے پڑا ہے لہو میں ہے ڈوبا ہوا سارا پے کر حسین الغریب الغریب الحسین حسین الشہید الشہید الحسین تڑپ کر وہ چلائی شبیر بیٹا لہو میں نہائے وہ سر بھی جدا ہے تبر کس نے مارا ہے سارے بدن پر یہ تیروں پہ کس نے جنازہ رکھا ہے کہاں ہے میرا لال آبا سے بولو میں پوچھوں گی اس سے یہ کیسے ہوا ہے حسین الغریب الغریب الحسین حسین الشہید الشہید الحسین صدا سم کے زہرا کی تھرائے غازی جو داتن سے سرتا تو شان کٹے تھے غموں یاس و حسرت میں مغرور مستر کہا کیا کہ دریا کا نالہ ستارے پڑے تھے سوئے القماب، جو بی بی نے دیکھا وہاں فو کے ساحل پہ جھنڈے گرے تھے، حسین الغریب الغریب الحسین، حسین الشہید الشہید الحسین۔ ادھر درد و غم کی ستاتی تھی زینب، جو وحشت کے جنگل میں حیدر بنی تھی، کبھی خاک راتی کبھی اشک پیٹی، جو کنبے کے پیر پہ تنا کھڑی تھی، سکینہ کے ساقہ کو آواز دے کر غم شاہدین میں بکا کر رہی تھی، حسین الغریب الغریب الحسین، حسین الشہید الشہید الحسین۔ کبھی دل میں دیتی وہ ماں کو صدائیں، کبھی رو کے کہتی کہ بابا کہاں ہو، شہیدوں کا نوحہ تھا اس کے زباں پر، آباد کس طرح اس کے غم کا بیان ہو، ہمیں بھی شہادت ہو نصرت کی حاصل، خدا را ظہور امام زمان ہو، حسین الغریب الغریب الحسین، حسین الشہید الشہید الحسین، حسین الغریب الغریب الحسین، حسین الشہید الشہید الحسین۔ صلوات۔
صلوات محمد وآل محمد۔ کربلا رکھتے ہیں باغ رام رکھتے ہیں ہم، کربلا رکھتے ہیں ہم، باغ رام رکھتے ہیں ہم، نعمتیں دونوں جہاں کی بہام رکھتے ہیں ہم، نعمتیں دونوں جہاں کی بہام رکھتے ہیں ہم، راہ حق میں اس لیے ٹھوکر کبھی کھاتے نہیں، راہ حق میں اس لیے ٹھوکر کبھی کھاتے نہیں، یا علی کہتے ہیں پہلے، یا علی کہتے ہیں پہلے، پھر قدم رکھتے ہیں ہم، کربلا رکھتے ہیں ہم. صلوات.
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد.
بارے دیگر صلوات.
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد.
حسین یوں ہوئے اے مجرے وطن سے جدا، حسین یوں ہوئے اے مجرے وطن سے جدا، کہ جیسے بلبل ناشاد ہو چمن سے جدا، کہ جیسے بلبل ناشاد ہو چمن سے جدا. سپاہ شام سے نکلا جو خر تو بولے ملا، سپاہ شام سے نکلا جو خر تو بولے ملا، وہ آفتاب درخشاں ہوا چمن سے جدا. حسین یوں ہوئے اے مجرے وطن سے جدا، وطن میں پھر کے سفر سے نہ جیتے جی آئے، وطن میں پھر کے سفر سے نہ جیتے جی آئے. عجب گھڑی تھی کہ اکبر ہوئے چمن سے جدا، حسین یوں ہوئے اے مجرے وطن سے جدا. نکالا گردن اصغر سے تیر جب شہ نے، نکالا گردن اصغر سے تیر جب شہ نے، اور گلے سے بہنے لگا خون جدا دہن سے جدا. حسین یوں ہوئے اے مجرے وطن سے جدا. رے سکینہ مر گئی قیدے ستم میں گھٹ گھٹ کر، سکینہ مر گئی قیدے ستم میں گھٹ گھٹ کر اور مگر نہ چاند سی گردان ہوئے رسان سے جدا حسین یوں ہوئے اے مجرے صلوات
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد.
فاتحہ. صلوات محمد وآل محمد.
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل
غربت کا داغ یوسف پنہا سے پوچھئے غربت کا داغ یوسف پنہا سے پوچھئے اور یہ سب ملال شاہ ہے شہیداں سے پوچھئے یہ سب ملال شاہ ہے شہیداں سے پوچھئے رے غربت کا سامنا ہے شہ مشرقین پر رے مظلومیت برستی ہے نام حسین پر رے مظلومیت برستی ہے نام حسین پر اور نکلے تھے کس گھڑی جو وطن پھر نہ جان پائے اور صغرا تھی منتظر اسے بھی بلانے پائے صغرا تھی منتظر اسے بھی بلانے پائے فرزند نوجوان کی نہ شادی رچان پائے اور شادی رچانی کیسی نہ میت اٹھانے پائے شادی رچانی کیسی نہ میت اٹھانے پائے اور ایسا کسی نبی کا نواسا نہیں ہوا مہمان ذبح نہر پر پیاسا نہیں ہوا مہمان ذبح نہر پر پیاسا نہیں ہوا اور راہ خدا میں شاہ کے یاور ہوئے فدا رے امت کے نوجوانوں پر اکبر ہوئے فدا رے امت کے نوجوانوں پر اکبر ہوئے فدا رے شیعوں کے شیر خاروں پر اصغر ہوئے فدا رے شیعوں کے شیر خاروں پر اصغر ہوئے فدا ایک جان فاطمہ پر 72 ہوئے فدا ایک جان فاطمہ پر 72 ہوئے فدا رے تاراج دفتن ہوا گلزار پانجتن ایک دوپہر میں لٹ گئی سرکار پانجتن ایک دوپہر میں لٹ گئی سرکار پانجتن اور آتی ہے لاش لاش پہ شے کس طرح اٹھا اور میدان سے لاشیں لائیں کے پرسے کو گھر میں جا اور میدان سے لاشیں لائیں کے پرسے کو گھر اور عابد کی لیں خبر کے بہن کو گلے اور عابد کی لیں خبر کے بہن کو گلے اور اکبر کے غم میں روئیں کے اصغر کو رن میں لا اکبر کے گھر میں روئیں کے اصغر کو گن میں لا اور جس پر پڑے تباہی اور آہا کیا کرے صابر حسین سا ہو تو شکر خدا کرے صابر حسین سا ہو تو شکر خدا کرے غربت کا داغ یوسف صلوات
Assalamu alaikum. Before we continue, I have a short poem I'd like to share. In the sands of time, Habib's loyalty proved true, a friend unwavering, steadfast through and through. In valorous deeds, he met his final breath, a true shaheed's way of death. Couple of short announcements. The IEC Youth Group is collecting information on youth in the community to be able to serve you with better programs and services. We request everyone under the age of 25 to please fill out the form on the IEC website. Inshallah, tomorrow, Saturday, July 22nd, after the Majlis, we will be organizing a Q&A session with Dr. Hazari, and we request you to join this very valuable session. Please don't forget the blood drive taking place on August 12th. Everyone is humbly requested to come and donate. Without further ado, please welcome Shaykh Dr. Mehdi Hazari with the Behatreen Salawat.
على حب فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين صلوا على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد. لتعجيل فرج الإمام صاحب العصر والزمان صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Can we please have a Surah Al-Fatiha and 3 Surah Al-Ikhlas for Mir Mehdi Ali Khan, Mirza Sajjad Ahmad Abid, and Badir Jahan. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا رسول الله وعلى بيتك المعصومين الأبرار الميامين المظلومين المضطهدين السلام عليك وعلى ولدك المظلوم أبي عبد الله الحسين. يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة، يا غريب يا مظلوم يا عطشان كربلاء، ما خاب والله من تمسك بكم، أمنا من لجأ والتجأ إليكم. يا ليتنا فيا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز والله فوزا عظيما. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن المنافقين في الدرك الأسفل من النار ولن تجد لهم نصيرا إلا الذين تابوا وأصلحوا واعتصموا بالله واخلصوا دينهم لله فأولئك مع المؤمنين وسوف يؤتي الله المؤمنين أجرا عظيما. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل. والسلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. So, I'm already being told that. Good? Yes. For the love of Fatima Zahra, please stand up and move inward. I was told that I should tell you to come closer so that people have room. And in the future, if you find you don't want to be so close to me, just strategically plan out and come 10 minutes late. It's all strategy. It's okay. It's good. I'm a strategic person. In school, I always was the one sitting in the back of the class. I've also been asked to remind everyone, as was just mentioned, that tomorrow we will have, inshallah, a question and answer after the majlis. This will include the brothers and the sisters. I also want to say that I'm here at your service for these nights, inshallah. It is my distinct honor and privilege to be here with you. I thank you all for giving me this blessing to commemorate with you. That being said, that even after the majlis, I am here. If you have questions, you want to talk about something, and not just the brothers, I don't see the sisters, but this invitation is to them, and this is offered openly with my heart to the sisters as well, that I am happy to converse and answer any questions or discuss anything that you have. For the next 2 nights, I will ask that you keep an open mind, okay? Especially tomorrow night, inshallah. Because the Majlis of Imam Hussain is not about dogmatism. It is about walking the path of Allah within the boundaries that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created, and understanding where Allah wants us to go, the way He wants us to go. It is very important. They say that after the martyrdom of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wassalam, on the day of Ashura, after the tents had been burned, after the property of Ahl al-Bayt, Banati Rasulullah, had been looted, the women had been tied in chains, the aghlal had been placed around the necks, and they were being made to walk through the battlefield. Al-Imam As-Sajjad, it's related many years later, he was talking to a man named Zaida. Zaida in some, Zayida in some riwayat, it's reported. Zaidah had come to see Imam al-Sajjad, and Imam Sajjad asked him, he said, I heard, O Zaidah, that you go to the visit of my father al-Hussein. You go for ziyarah. Knowing full well that the regime that rules us, they persecute the visitors of al-Hussein. They threaten them. You still go? Zaidah, he says, Yabna Rasulillah, my goal is to reach Allah and His Rasul. So let them do what they want. I will still go to the ziyarah of al-Hussein. Nothing will stop me. So Imam Sajjad, he says, Oh Zaidah, let me tell you something that happened to me on the night of Karbala, on the night of Ashura. He says, that night, when we were being made to walk through the battlefield and the dead bodies are in front of us, he said, I saw the bodies of my father, the bodies of my cousins, my brothers, my uncles, the companions of my father, everyone lying there on the ground. And that put a sorrow and a pain in my heart, in my chest. And it is reported that when that happened, my aunt Zainab, she came and she says, Mali araka tajudu binafsika ya baqiyata jaddi wa abi wa akhi. My aunt comes to me and she looks at me and she says, why do I see you suffering like this? Oh, the remnant, oh, the baqiyya, the successor of my grandfather, my father, and my brother. How is it that I see you in this state? Imam As-Sajjad, he says, Ya ammata wa kayfa la ajza' wa ahla wa ara walidi wa ikhwati wa umumti wa ahl umumti mudarrajina bidima'ihim murammalina bil'ara. How is it that my aunt, I cannot be bewildered and in a state of pain, looking at my father, my brothers, my cousins, all of my relatives' bodies lying here on the land of Karbala? Sayyidah Zainab, she answers him. She says, rest assured that it is the promise of Allah to your grandfather Rasulullah that Allah will bring a community who will come and bury these bodies, help in the burial of the bodies, and who will erect flags and pillars around this location so that the people can come every moment in the visitation of your father Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. And then she says something very important. She says, لَيَجْتَهِدَنَّ أَئِمَّةَ الْكُفْرِ وَشِيَاعِ الضَّلَالَ فِي مَحْوِهِ وَتَطْسِيمِهِ تَطْمِيسِهِ. She says, the imams of kufr, she calls them a'immat al-kufr. The imams who lead towards disbelief and denial, and their Shia, the Shia who misguide people, they will be hard at work trying to erase any sign of this grave, erase any message that existed here. وَلَا يَزْدَادْ أَثَرُهُ إِلَّا ظَهُورًا وَأَمْرُهُ إِلَّا عُلُوًّا. She says they will try what they want, but its sign will only increase. Its symbol will only get bigger and bigger. And its effect will only rise more and more. That's why today you see millions walking there, no? These are the words of Sayyidah Zainab alayha salatu wassalam. So now, let me ask this question. How did we get to this point? From her statement there to us sitting here. Not just here, so many other Husainiyat, Imam Bargah, centers, mosques, North America, forget it, across the world. For the ages that have come. How is it we are sitting in this spot? What causes insan to practice what we are practicing today? And indeed, are we doing anything different than we did last year? No. We're doing the same thing. We're wearing the same clothes. We are scheduling our events in the same manner. We are having tabarruk. We are doing exactly what we've been doing. Year after year after year, century after century after century after century, the same practice has been taking place. How has that practice happened? What has brought us to this place? Insan, my dear brothers and sisters, Islam teaches us, and if you look at the way science describes insan, insan has two, in what I call, basic functions. One is something called patterning. The human body, it tends to pattern. It likes patterns. And it has a specific reason why it patterns. And I will explain it to you. The other thing that the human body does is it is reactive. It has reactivity. Meaning, whatever is in front of you, you have to be able to respond to it. If there is heat, too much heat that is damaging your body, you will move away. It's a response. It is a reactive response. So insan, based on these two qualities, is going to transform in his daily life or her daily life. And that, over many, many centuries, many, many years, has to change. Does it not? Or does it change? And that's the question, is that how has insan gotten here? One of the examples given in the Holy Quran is that when Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam, when he was young, you know this, that the riwayat, they report that Nabi Ibrahim was taken and he was housed in a cave until he was approximately 13, 14 years of age. Because people were worried. There was a prophecy from Azar that a young man is going to be born and he is going to obliterate what we have been worshipping and following for the last centuries. So there was an immediate rush to catch all the newborn boys and, like with the time of Musa alayhi salam, remove them. So Ibrahim alayhi salam was brought to this cave. He was raised in that cave, and at the age of 13 he came out. Now as he comes out, he returns back to society. Azar sees him, and there is some debate on Hazar's relationship to Ibrahim alayhi salam. But we know that Azar was a priest in the temple where all the idols were. So he took Ibrahim, after the reunion, after all of these years, into the temple, and he introduces Ibrahim to all of these idols. We have this idol, we have this idol here, we have another idol of this shape, this size, all different things that they are seeing in front of them. So Ibrahim asks, he's a young man at this time, he says, "Oh Azar," he says, "how do you know that they're hearing you? You're offering them food, you're giving them tribute, you're praying to them, you're asking them to fulfill your need. How do you know they're hearing you?" Azar says, "Ibrahim, we don't know that they're hearing us. We don't in fact know. It is a statue. How are you going to know? It is a stone statue, a wood statue. We don't know that they're hearing us." Ibrahim asks them, "Why are you doing it?" He says, "Because that's what we found everyone doing before us. And we carried it on and we carried it on." No? So now the ayah of the Quran, it comes down to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad. That says, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ اتَّبِعُوا مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهِ قَالُوا بَلْ نَتَّبِعُ مَا أَلْفَيْنَا عَلَيْهِ آبَاءَنَا. It says that if it is said to them that follow what Allah has sent down, Allah's code, what Allah wants you to do, their answer is they will follow, we will follow what we found our fathers doing. We found our fathers doing it, so we're going to do it as well. Yet the ayah doesn't stop. Look at the warning of the Quran, and this is where we have to pay attention to the words of Allah. Because not only does He point to the folly of people, He indicates to you why there is folly in there. He says, أَوَلَوْ كَانَ آبَاؤُهُمْ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ شَيْئًا وَلَا يَهْتَدُونَ. He says, could it be, and is it the case that their fathers did not use their reasoning at all, and in fact they had not been guided at all, and were practicing these things generations after generations without realizing that it was folly? Imagine. So in fact, blind following of what the fathers were doing, the grandfathers were doing, the generations were doing before, what did it lead to? Eventually, the punishment and the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no? And the Quran is quite clear. So the question becomes, looking at a story like this, that is blind following allowed in Islam? Are we allowed to just blindly follow? Now let me ask this question. If you are in an environment, you are raised in a society or a house or a family or a tribe or something like this, where you are not taught the reasons why you should obey Allah. You're not given the reasons. You are told from the beginning, the minute you understand and you become at the level of tamyiz, meaning you're able to discern and differentiate, that this is the taklif that Allah has put upon you. Your obligation, you must do it. And if you don't do it, you will be punished by Allah. And that penetrates deep into your soul. And so from the beginning of your life, you obey. You never disobey. But you don't know why you're obeying. You're just obeying. Will you go to Nar Jahannam? You're obeying. You're doing what God told you. You're praying your 5-time prayer. You eat halal, you don't eat haram. You fast, you give your khums, you go for hajj, you obey. But you don't know any meaning behind it. Will you go to Nar Jahannam? I don't know the answer. I don't. But I'm posing it as a question that we may think. We may ponder. Ostensibly, seemingly, you shouldn't go to Nar Jahannam because you did what God wanted you to do, no? You lived the way Allah wanted you to live, albeit without reasoning, without understanding, without knowing its purpose. So maybe it begs the question, how in fact elevated were you in your approach to God? Whereas everyone was using their mind and going higher and higher and higher, close to Allah, you stayed here because all you did was blindly follow. No? Is that not the case? And that is the question that we have to ask. That, where is the state of humanity? Why are we this way? And insan is a strange, I think by now, hopefully I've proven myself to you, and you have understood what I'm saying, that insan is a strange creature. Strange creature. And the more you study insan, you will see that what is described about the nature of insan, Quran has already reflected it, has already warned you. If you just see carefully in the Quran, science has nothing. I'm a scientist and I'm telling you. I'm an established scientist and I'm telling you, science has nothing on the Quran. Science can do nothing to add to Quran. Quran is complete. But science is a means of understanding our nature. So let me tell you about our nature. Yes? In a place called San Pedro Manrique. San Pedro Manrique is a small little village on the mountainside in Spain. Some say this happens in Greece also. During one of the solstices, I think it's solstice, they say the people of this small little village, they wear special clothing, they all hold hands, and they start walking up the side of the mountain. At the top of the mountain, there is like a little courtyard almost, an area that has been assigned for ritual purposes. They walk up, they come there, they all join in, they bring a big old collection of wood with them. Lay it down in the middle of that courtyard, they have a pit, they light it on fire. And they let it burn. And it gets hot. The data shows that it's very hot. Some researchers went. Once the fire has gone out and the embers are remaining, these people, they grab each other's hands and they walk across the fire. They walk across. Now I thought to myself, this is nothing new. Our Shia have been doing this for a long time, no? And we do it for the love of Abi Abdullah al-Hussein. But that's not the point I'm trying to make here. They do this. The person who was reporting on this action in San Pedro Manrique was saying that it's so bewildering to see this. Ordinary people don't see these sorts of things every day. He said, it's so bewildering to see these people walking on the fire like this, burning the bottoms of their feet. And indeed, they are burning the bottom of their feet because they're not running across. In our countries, when they do the narka matam, what do? They're running across real fast. You barely touch the fire. These people go slow, such that the bottom of their feet are burning. So the reporter is saying it was bewildering to watch them, but what I realized is that they were calm on the inside. They were reassured. We saw them from the outside and were just aghast at what they were doing, but what was inside of them was calmness and nothing but reassurance. So now they describe, there's one old man, he's been doing it for decades. Decades he's been doing it. So he's getting old. His son describes that I took him to the doctor, he's getting old. He's got a bit of a heart problem. The doctor told him, you can't do it anymore. You can't do it anymore. Because if you put that stress on your body, you will have a heart attack. You must stop. This is not a good thing for you. They describe this old man was very depressed, extremely depressed. He's been doing it for decades. He cannot go up there and walk on the fire. And not only can he not walk on the fire, but he's been told that it will harm him if he does so. So the son comes to him and he says to him, come with us, we'll go. We'll all hold hands and we'll go together as we do every year, all of us together. Father says, no, I don't want to go. They say, why? The son asks him, he says, Father, why don't you want to go? He says, because if I go up there, I'll want to do it. And he says, if I can't do it for some reason, I'll feel so bad, I'll want to, these are his words, I'll want to throw myself off the side of the cliff and kill myself. That's how much that ritual means to him. Look, I'm trying to point to you the nature of insan. So you see these sorts of behaviors. This happens in places in Greece as well. And I told you, it happens amongst us. Why? Because, my dear brothers and sisters, if you see the nature of insan wants something supernatural, something out of the ordinary to hold on to. Do we not? We want to hold on to something that is higher than just the mundane level of our life every day. We want to be able to feel that, the power of something like that, that we are doing something that is extraordinary. And the strange thing is that it has an effect on us. The Holy Quran, it describes, you know, the ayah, Ya ayyuhal insanu innaka kadihun ila rabbika kadhan famulaqih. The ayah, it says, O insan, you are toiling and struggling and working hard, a very difficult hardship until you meet God. Life of this world is difficult. Salawat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Please move more in. Please move a little closer. They're asking me that. If you can tighten up and come closer. Salawat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. So when they describe, Allahumma salli ala So, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. So when they describe these rituals that people are doing, and why do I say this to you? Because we, as Muslims, as the Shia of Ahl al-Bayt, as the Muwaleen of Amir al-Mu'mineen, of Al-Hasan al-Mujtaba, of Al-Hussain al-Shaheed, we are also involved in ritualism, are we not? And the question I want to pose to you tonight is, what is the benefit of that ritual? Is there any benefit to ritualism? Are we thinking about what we are doing, or are we just doing it because that's what my father did? My grandfather did it. So much so, and please don't be insulted by my words, I, like you, have come from India, Pakistan, originally. But yet my connection to that land is virtually none, because I was born in Canada, I was basically raised partially in the Middle East and here. So my connection to that land is not much. But whatever my parents did, certainly they've pushed it on me to some degree, no? Because it was their culture, it was their ritual. And so our young people who are born and being raised here, how much of that ritualism is being passed to them without understanding? Without a true knowledge and a cognizance of why it's being done? And what is its impact on our faith and our adherence to religion? It is something we have to consider, because religion is not trivial. It is not something we leave to chance. It's not something we leave to just perpetual motion that this is what I have been doing for centuries or decades, and now that's what I'm going to continue to do. No, it is about cognizance. And that's why when people talk about ritualism, they say that the performance of rituals, which is in every society, every community has rituals. So clearly there must be a reason for it. It has nothing to do with the human body. It has nothing to do with the human body, the physical body. But it has everything to do with what is called psychosocial stress, particularly today. The rigors of life, and that's why I read to you the ayah, Ya ayyuhal insanu innaka kadihun ila rabbika kadhan famulaqih. You are toiling, toiling, toiling. When you work hard and you are toiling and you're struggling and you go to work and you work 9 hours and you come home, what happens to you? You're looking for that cup of chai just to relax, no? It's like therapy for you. I like to watch soccer. Soccer is my therapy. In fact, when I play soccer, I'm not thinking about anything. It's the most freeing moment that I have, yes? We're all looking for some escape, some way to get rid of the toil and the rigor and the difficulty and the trouble of life. So now they did a study in which they went to one of the islands that is south of India, in the Indian Sea, Indian Ocean. And they found that this was mainly a fishing village, small little island, and predominantly Hindus, and they had lots of rituals. They had their idols, they performed their rituals, as is known to many of you. They decided that they're going to do a little test on these people. They asked their permission. They took two groups. One group, they said to them that do your rituals as you normally do, okay? All your rituals, do them as you normally do, perform them, engage in them, spend as much time as you are doing, stay with the group that you normally do, all of you together are doing these rituals. After they're done with that, they said, they brought them into a room and they gave them some anxiety-causing stimuli, meaning they told them about cyclones and disaster. They have techniques which they use in psychology where they caused anxiety in them. The other group, they didn't allow them to do the rituals. They made them sit in an empty room with nothing in it, just a bare room. They said, you all sit separately. And then they caused the anxiety-stimulating facts upon them as well. And while they were giving them these anxiety symptoms, while they were causing the anxiety in them, they were measuring in them something called heart rate variability. I measure that in my own lab, so I know a little bit about that. They measured heart rate variability, and they looked at markers of anxiety. Guess what it showed? The ones who were doing the rituals before being shown the anxiety-causing stimuli had far less anxiety. Their markers of heart rate variability and their markers of anxiety were less. Whereas the ones who were put into just a room, not allowed to do their ritual, their anxiety levels were very high. And so the researchers, what did they conclude? They concluded that people need these rituals. They need to hold on to these rituals. They need to be able to do them. Why? Not because of biology, but because psychologically it decreases their anxiety. Not only does it decrease their anxiety, it makes them feel that they are part of a whole. You're not doing your ritual on your own. Sometimes you are, but for the most part, you are together. You're doing your ritual together. You are participating in it together, so you feel like you are part of something bigger. You have engaged in something bigger, and your anxiety level comes down. They did an even crazier study. Let me tell you about this. They took two groups of people, and they told them that you're going to take a math test. If you're like me, math is the worst subject, all right? Never was good at math. And my father always looked at me and he said, what sort of Indian Pakistani guy are you? You don't know how to do math. I was good at English. I was good at PE. PE was a good class for me. I was good at cooking class because I get to eat everything you cook, yeah? But math, never. So they tell these people, look, you got to do math, okay? And these math are not easy. You're going to have to do difficult math. They took the groups, they separated them. One, they just left them separate. They said, just sit here until the math test. We'll give you the math test in just a little bit. The other ones, they gave them a piece of paper. They said, imagine yourself to be a magician. Draw a picture of yourself. Draw a picture of yourself. However you see yourself, draw a picture on this paper. They gave them a little bit of salt. They said, take some salt, sprinkle the salt on the picture, and say a little limerick, some little, I don't know, fewer words, weird words, and just do that, and then take the paper, crumple it up, and burn it. burn it. And then they gave them the math test after that. Guess who did better on the math test? The ones who were making the picture and doing that fake magic trick with the salt, which was all garbage. There was nothing in it. It was just something made up. But they invariably did better on the math test. That ritual, even though it was fake, it caused less anxiety. It decreased the amount of anxiety, and it caused them to perform. Imagine. Think about how powerful rituals are. Rituals are extremely powerful. That's why today when you think of Imam Hussain, Abi Abdullah alayhi salam, ruhi lahu al-fida, salawat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli. You recognize how we have gotten here today. And there are those, I will sidetrack a little bit. There are those who say, you have created this on your own. This weeping and crying for Hussein every year, same thing, same story over and over, over and over. You have done it over and over. You have created this. No, we have not. Because the riwayat, the traditions are there in the books that long before the demise of Imam Abi Abdullah al-Hussein, Rasulullah was crying for him. That when Fadl, she comes and she says, Ya Rasulullah, last night I saw that a piece of your flesh was cut from your body and it fell. And it fell into my lap. Rasulullah, he says, you have seen properly. Because when Imam Hussain was born, she is the one who brought him to Rasulullah. And when Rasulullah took him, it is reported he began to weep and cry. So Fadl, she comes in, she says, Ya Rasulullah, why are you so sad? Why are you weeping? You should be in a state of happiness at the birth of your grandson. He says, Oh Fadl, right now Jibreel came to me and he said to me, يُقْتَلُ وَلَدُكَ الْحُسَيْنِ فِي أَرْضِ الْعِرَاقِ. Your son will be killed in Iraq, in a place known as Karbala. Rasulullah wept for Imam Hussain. All of these traditions that we have, these things that we may consider to be to some degree ritualistic because they continue unchanged for so long, are the starting point is Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. That's why not only him, but Fatima al-Zahra alayha salatu wassalam, Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, all of the Anbiya and Mursaleen, it is reported, cried for al-Hussein. Cried for al-Hussein. But even in its most practical sense, you know, that how did the ma'tam of al-Hussein begin? This ritual, no? And excuse me, I will say it as ritual. It is greater than ritual for sure. You know what I am saying. But how did the practice occur? They say that when the Sabaya, when the prisoners were brought into Kufa, a woman was crying and wailing at the top of her voice when she saw the heads being brought in on the spears. In the court of Yazid, la'natullahi alayh, we know that the niyah was taking place. Women were crying from seeing what had been done to the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. When they were returned to Karbala on the 40th day, on the day of Arba'in, we know that ma'tam took place. It is reported that it took place. Not only that, but that when the news reached into Medina, one lady in particular, when she heard the news, she took her grandson and she went walking to the grave of Fatima al-Zahra and she says, I have come to give you the news. And she wept and she cried. This act, this practice of ours has come through many years. And it was in those days, in that time, that it was called niyah. Niyah in Arabic, when you say it is about weeping and crying by telling the story. But there was no one in those days who would actually tell the maqtal the way we do today. People would cry, they would recount, but not the way we are doing it today. This tradition came later. You know, in the time of the Banu Abbas, that Imam Rida alayhi salatu wassalam, and even prior to Imam Rida, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. There was a poet, his name was Kumit. Kumit was well known for how beautiful poetry he used to recite. Now I ask you, and again, Don't be insulted by what I am saying. Hear just the words as plainly as I'm going to say to you. What is the good of that poetry? What is the use of it? We sit and do marsiya, we do salam, noha is poetry. We do it in every language. We do it in Arabic, we do it in Farsi, we do it in Urdu, we do it in Punjabi, we do it in English, we do it in Spanish. I've heard it in Swedish, I've heard it in German, in Dutch, Russian, Creole, all these languages are doing now Noha and Matam. What's the use of that poetry? Are you gaining some knowledge out of it? You've learned something new about Ahl al-Bayt? Or are you just telling the same story over and over again? Hussein was thirsty, he was martyred with 72 of his companions. You are just hearing the same story over and over again. Yet the significance of that story, that ritual, is that when they said to Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, when they came in front of him, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad. When Kumit would come, he would say to him, "O Kumit, recite for me some poetry about my grandfather, Abi Abdullah." And when he recited it, Imam as-Sadiq would weep and cry. And he would say, anyone who recites the poetry, the elegies of my grandfather al-Hussein, and he weeps or she weeps, and they make the other weep as well, it has become promised on them that they should go to Jannah. Now, we know that the promise of the Imam is proper, yes? But isn't that contingent on a lot of other conditions? Just that I recite the poetry and I'm going to Jannah? Is that it? I could be a bad person selling alcohol for my business. I own a gas station, I sell alcohol, and yet I'm reading the poetry of Al-Hussein. No? Jannah is promised for me? No, there are conditions. It's not so simple that you say, I have followed the ritual, what has been passed down from generation to generation, automatically Jannah is written for me. No, we are being held to a higher stage. That's why you see that the recitation of these poems, they had meaning. Even in the time of Ar-Rida alayhi salatu wassalam, there was Da'bal al-Khuza'i. Da'bal, I'm sure many of you know that his poem Madarisu Ayatin Khalat Min Tilawatin Wa Manzilu Wahyin Muqfarul Arasati Afatimu Law Khilti al-Husayn Mujaddalan. I wish you can understand the Arabic. وَقَدْ مَاتَ عَطْشَانًا بِشَطِّ فُرَاتِ إِذًا لَلَطَمْتِ الْخَدَّ فَاطِمُ عِنْدَهُ وَأَجْرَيْتِ الْدَمْعَ الْعَيْنِ أَجْرَيْتِ دَمْعَ الْعَيْنِ فِي الْوَجَنَاتِ أَفَاطِمُ قُومِي يَبْنَةَ الْخَيْرِ وَانْدُبِي نُجُومَ سَمَاوَاتٍ بِأَرْضِ فَلَاتِ. The poem breaks your heart about the tears of Fatima for Al-Hussein. Yet we've carried it and it has meaning. It has meaning. So what is the problem? What is all of this that I've been telling you, that rituals are not enough? My dear brothers and sisters, hold your rituals. Hold your rituals. When those researchers went to San Pedro Manrique, to the island in the Indian Ocean, they asked them about the significance of those rituals. And the people who were there, they, without doubt, without hesitation, said this ritual is so critical to who we are. So important to what we believe, what we consider to be significant in our lives. And it is a necessary thing without which we cannot thrive. We need it. Yet when the researchers asked them, why do you do it? There was no answer as to why. I ask you this question, do we have an answer as to why? Is it surely just for tears? Is it only because that's what my father was doing, my grandfather was doing? And believe me, may the ajr of Allah through Fatima al-Zahra be on all of the ones who are reciting, all. I'm not saying that. I'm asking the question that should we not ask, what is the meaning behind this ritual? And that's why this is called what's called a ritual paradox. You do the ritual, but you have no clue why you're doing it. You're doing it because everyone else is doing it, because that's what they've been doing. And yet, Allah says there is something that you should consider above this. In the Holy Quran, you all know this, that after the Bani Israel
had been banished into the desert for 40 years, Musa alayhi salam, he receives a wahi, a message, it is reported, that go and find such and such a teacher. You know this story, no? So he goes. At first he has Yosha ibn Nun with him, but then they go and they find this teacher. This teacher, they describe in the riwayat that wherever he sits, the flowers start to grow around him. That's how Allah had made him. It was his mu'jiza, that wherever he will sit, the grass will become green and the flowers will come out in front of him. So Musa comes to him. He says, I want to learn from you. This teacher, you all know who I am talking about, Khidr alayhi salam. He says, come, but I'm warning you. Don't question what I do. Don't question. Quran talks about this. Many riwayat on this. Don't question what I am about to do. So Khidr goes, and I will make the long story short. There's a boat, he punctures the boat. There was no reason for it, he just punctures it, it sinks to the bottom. There's a young man, young boy, he kills him. There was no reason to kill him, he just killed him. Number 3, there's a wall that's broken down. He builds the wall, he cements the wall back up, doesn't take any payment for it, doesn't take any compensation for it. All the while, Musa alayhi salam doesn't understand what's happening. Why did you puncture the boat? There was no reason to destroy somebody's boat. Why did you kill an innocent young boy for no reason? Why did you build the wall? You know what the answer of Khidr is? The Quran says, هذا فراق بيني وبينك سأنبئك بتأويل ما لم تستطع عليه صبرا. He says, now is the time where we go our separate ways. You go that way, I will go this way. Why? Khidr says to him, I will explain to you, and we will talk about this ayah a little more in the next few nights. I will explain to you what you did not have the patience to understand. Now we're talking about ulul azm min al-rusul. Musa alayhi salam is one of the 5 ulul azm. Sahib al-kitab, Sahib al-sharia, had gone up to Tur Sayna with Allah, Kalim Allah. He is not an ordinary man. Yet, there is one who has more knowledge than him. And when Musa does not have the knowledge that Allah had given to Khidr, what happened to Musa? His patience went. What he saw in front of him, he could not respond to it. He couldn't understand it because he did not have the knowledge. Are you understanding what I am trying to explain to you? That's why even the riwayah, it says, it's reported that Musa, with all of the difficulties and the tyranny and the oppression that he faced at the hand of Fir'aun, the most difficult was when he was told by his teacher that go. هذا فراق بيني وبينك. You were not able to be patient. My dear brothers and sisters, I told you that insan has 2 aspects. Yes? Patterning, reactivity. Patterns, we see a pattern, we become habituated to that pattern, we do it over and over again. Why? Because it doesn't require us to think. Because you've been doing it, it saves energy, no? When you don't have to think about something, you don't have to focus your mind on why you're doing it, it saves energy. It becomes ritual, it just becomes repeated practice. Whereas the concept of reactivity, it means insan has to be able to respond to the environment around him or her. They must be able to deal with the changes that are occurring. Let me ask you, if you face a challenge in your daily life, do you turn to your ritual to help you out of that challenge? Do you? You have a mas'ala, you have some problem in jurisprudence, some law that you don't know about in Islam, you want to find out halal and haram. You turn to ritual? No, you go seek knowledge. There's problem in society. Where do you turn? Knowledge. You go to knowledge. You seek knowledge. Because knowledge is that thing that allows you to adapt to the environment around you. Rituals are what have remained the same. They are not changing. They are not going to adapt to society. They will continue. And if you stay with them, that's fine. There is no objection. But ask yourself, will you be able to adapt unless you acquire knowledge? You must. And that example that is given to us is extremely, extremely important. Extremely important, my dear brothers and sisters. Just look at the hearts of the people in Medina. They got so used to having Rasulullah there, Ahl al-Bayt there. Tell me, why was there only 72 people with Imam Hussain? Why wasn't all of Medina with Imam Hussain? No? They didn't know who he was? No, they got comfortable. They saw this repeated fellow who's here all the time, all the time, all the time. Knowledge. That's why they say that Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salatu was salam. I ask you just to pay attention now to the words of our Imam. He says to Hisham ibn al-Hakam, he says, "Man sallata thalathan ala thalathin, فَكَأَنَّمَا أَعَانَ عَلَى هَدْمِ عَقْلِهِ." Who has allowed three things to overcome three other things, it is as if he has supported the destruction of his own mind. مَنْ أَظْلَمَ نُورَ تَفَكُّرِهِ بِطُولِ أَمَلِهِ. Whoever darkens the nur of their reasoning, their thinking, with nothing but foolish extended hopes. Whoever darkens their reasoning, their thinking, their pondering with extended hopes, meaning they're living life as if it's a fairy tale. It has no meaning. They're doing the same thing over and over, over and over, over and over, not adapting, not changing, not improving. They have supported the destruction of their mind. He says, "Men maha طرائف حكمته بفضول كلامه." Whoever has erased the wisdom that has built inside of their mind, by what? By vain and useless behavior, they have supported the destruction of their mind. And finally, من أطفأ نور عبرته بشهوات نفسه فكأنما أعان هواه على هدم عقله. He says, whoever has experience, has learned, has adapted to the world, and yet instead they allow their desires to corrupt that experience, that knowledge, that ilm, that ability to respond, it is as if they have destroyed their mind with the desires of their lower self. وَمَنْ هَدَمَ عَقْلَهُ هَدَمَ دِينَهُ وَدُنْيَاهُ. Whoever's mind has been destroyed, their religion has been destroyed as well. Look at this. You need both. You need to have both. And that's why Imam Kadhim in the same riwayah, he says, نَصْبُ الْحَقِّ لِطَاعَةِ اللَّهِ. Listen to this now. He says, truth was established for one purpose, and that is the obedience of God. Ya Allah. That is a most powerful statement. نصب الحق لطاعة الله ولا نجاة إلا بطاعة الله. Truth has been established so mankind creation can worship God, and there is no success or salvation except by worshiping God. ولا طاعة إلا بالعلم والطاعة بالعلم. Obedience is by knowledge. Obedience is by knowledge. Imam Kadhim is saying, والعلم بالتعلم. Knowledge can only be gotten by learning. وَالتَّعَلُّمْ بِالْعَقْلِ يُقْتَدَرْ. Knowledge can't only be gotten by learning. Learning must require a mind that is functioning to allow to verify it. Rituals are fine, but they are not what Ahl al-Bayt has said we stop at. Because we are the followers of Ali ibn Abi Talib. We have to be up here, my dear brothers and sisters. We cannot keep going on with the same thing over and over, over and over, over and over, and worse, not know why we are doing it. Do it. Know why you're doing it. Defend it with your blood. Defend it with everything you've got, but strengthen yourself with the knowledge of Ahl al-Bayt. Because those who wish you harm, they can take your blood, they can cut off your arm, they can harm you, damage you in any way, shape, or form, but they cannot take the knowledge from inside of you. That's why Imam Baqir alayhi salatu was salam, he says, Shi'atuna. Allahumma salli. It is reported, he says, our Shia are husunun hasina. They are fortresses. Fortresses of what? To protect knowledge. to protect and promote knowledge. And that's why hold on to your rituals, because they will give you foundation, they will give you something to hold on to that you carry forward, that keeps the legacy, the tears of Abi Abdullah al-Hussein alive. But remember that you need knowledge to move forward. Knowledge, learning is what is critical to advancement. And that is the defense of Imam Hussain, is it not? That when he stands, he holds the Quran and he says, Kitabullah bayni wa baynakum. The book of Allah is between me and you. Why? Because it is just a book with pages? No. Because it is knowledge. It is all knowledge that is there, that will testify as to who is right and who is wrong, and who does what. On that days before the day of Ashura, my dear brothers and sisters, they say that the companions of Imam Hussain had joined him, each one preparing, each one gathering. The Rawi, he describes, it was as if you could hear the buzz of the bees, because everyone was busy preparing. There was one raya, one flag, one alam that had been left, not assigned to somebody. Each was coming and saying, Mawla ya Aba Abdullah, give it to me. Imam Hussain, he says, no, the person who is supposed to carry it, he is coming. That person, he was in Kufa. And he was trying to make his way out of Kufa quietly. He had told his attendant that get the horse ready, I am coming. When he comes, he sees the attendant, not only with his horse, but an additional horse as well. This man, he comes, he sees his servant, he says, go, I have freed you. Why have you brought a horse? Go back. He says, no, my master. How is it that you are going to go in the defense of the grandson of Rasulullah and I will remain behind? Huh? So they say Habib ibn Madahir, he takes his attendant with him and they go. When they arrive into Karbala, he comes, they say he immediately, he falls at the feet of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Clutches his hands and he says, my master, forgive us for being late, that we have arrived late. Imam Hussain, he picks him up, he embraces him, he says, we have been waiting for you, O Habib. He gives him the alam. As he comes in, they say, the Rawi, he describes, that somebody hears the voice of Habib. Inside of the tent, a lady, she asks Ali al-Akbar, Man alladhi ata? Who came? Who came right now? Ali al-Akbar, he says, Ya ammata innahu Habib ibn Madahir. He turns to his aunt Zainab and he says, my aunt, it is Habib ibn Madahir who has come. She says to him, to Ali al-Akbar, she says, Ya Abul Hasan, ballighhu anni salam. Go and give salam to Habib. Ali al-Akbar, he comes, he goes to Habib ibn Madahir. He talks to Habib ibn Madahir. He says, my aunt Zainab gives salam to you. Habib ibn Madahir, he falls on the ground, they say. He takes the sand in his hand and he puts it on his head. And he says, Man ana wa banati Rasulullah tusallim alay. Who am I that the daughter of Rasulullah is going to say salam to me? He gets up. Now look at the akhlaq of Habib. He gets up, he goes to Imam Hussain. He says, Mawlaya ya Aba Abdullah, ata'dhan li an usallim ala binti Rasulillah. Do you give me permission that I can go say salam to her? Look at his respect, his akhlaq. Imam Hussain. If this is Habib, then what is Hussain? Habib, he comes to the door of the tent and he says, Assalamu alaykum ya banati Rasulillah. My salam upon you, O daughters of Rasulullah. I have come guilty that I did not come to support you before this. I have come guilty, with a guilty conscience, that I allowed for you to arrive into this place and in this stage. When the time of the battle it came on the day of Ashura, Habib ibn Madahir in the morning is standing, and the people are waiting for instructions. It is described that one of the enemy soldiers advances forward. Umar ibn Sa'ad had asked for a letter to be sent to Imam Hussain and to get a response. No one from the men of Kufa wanted to bring any of the letters from Umar ibn Sa'ad. So a man, his name was Al-Kathir, he said to Umar ibn Sa'ad, I will take the letter and I will go. I will come to Hussein. I will also take my sword if you command me, and I will kill Al-Hussein. Umar ibn Sa'ad, he says, no, you are not to kill or harm Al-Hussein, but take this letter and wait for the answer. Kathir, he advances forward. As he is coming forward, it is related that one of the companions, he asked permission of Imam Hussain, stepped forward and he said, stop, you cannot go any further. The only way I will allow you to come further is if you put your sword down on the ground. They will not allow anything to happen to Maulana al-Hussein. They stopped there. Kathir, he is such a soldier, such a hungry for violence that he says, I will not leave my sword for anything. The companion, he says, you are not going to advance past me. You will not move past me to go in the direction of my master al-Hussein. Kathir, he goes back. He takes the letter that was supposed to be given to Al-Imam al-Hussein. He tells Umar ibn Sa'ad that I could not deliver it. Umar ibn Sa'ad is asking all of the men of Kufa, who will take it, until finally one man, Ibn Qurra ibn Qais al-Handali, he comes forward and he says, I will take the letter. I will give the letter to Imam Hussein. My dear brothers and sisters, the history recounts the men of Kufa did not want to take this letter from Umar ibn Sa'ad to Imam Hussein, because they are the same men who wrote letters inviting Imam Hussein to Kufa. With what face are they going to show themselves to the master of the time? Qurra ibn Qais, he comes. He gives the letter to Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein says, go, I will give you the answer. As Qurra ibn Qais is going back towards the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad, Habib ibn Madahir, he comes forward. He says, Maulana ya ibn Rasulillah, I know this man, he is from Kufa. I thought him to be a true believer, one of the ones who are good. Will you give me permission to speak with him? Habib ibn Madahir goes and speaks to Qurra ibn Qais. My dear brothers and sisters, he tries to convince Qurra ibn Qais. But Qurra ibn Qais knows what he has achieved and what he wants out of Hayat ad-Dunya. The Rawi, he even says that when the tents were burning, when the earrings were being snatched, Qurra ibn Qais was watching everything happening in front of him. Ala wa la'natullahi ala al-qawm al-zalimeen. Now the day of Ashura. There is Qurra ibn Qais. Here is Habib ibn Madahir. The alam has been given in the hands of Habib on one end. The Rawi, he says he goes out to the battlefield, fighting against the enemy soldiers. One by one they have come to attack him from every side, striking him with their swords from the right, hitting him with the arrows from the left. فَجَاءَهُ لَعِينٌ مِّنْ وَرَائِهِ وَطَعَنَهُ بِرُمْحِهِ. An enemy soldier, a coward, he came from behind Habib, took his spear and struck Habib ibn Madahir in the back. Habib ibn Madahir is falling to the ground, calling out, Assalamu alayka ya Sayyidi ya Aba Abdullah. عليك مني آخر السلام. My salam upon you for the last time. Habib is on the ground, on his hands and his knees. فنزل إليه حصين ابن تميم. Hussain or Hasin ibn Tamim comes down. رفع سيفه واحتز رأسه الشريف. He raises the sword and cuts the head of Habib ibn Madahir. My dear brothers and sisters, when the Waqi'ah, the battle of Karbala was over, a soldier he came. He took the head of Habib ibn Madahir, tied it with the ropes, fastened the rope to the reins of his horse, and began to ride towards Kufa. As he is entering into Kufa, the head of Habib ibn Madahir dragging in the sand behind him. Everyone sees the soldier and runs. The little children who are playing in the streets of Kufa, seeing the sight, run in every direction. One little boy is chasing after the head of Habib. وَهُوَ يَنْظُرُ إِلَيْهِ. The soldier, he says, يَا بُنَيْ مَا لَكَ تَتْبَعُنِي. Oh little boy, why are you following me? The young boy, he looks at the soldier and he says, La shay, keeping his eyes on that head. Finally, the soldier, he gets down from the horse. He comes to the little boy and says, Ya bunay akhbarni. Tell me, oh little boy, why are you looking at this head? He says to him, Hada ra'su walidi Habib ibn Madahir. This is the head of my father Habib. أفتعطني حتى أدفنه. Will you not give it to me so I can وسيعلم الذين ظلموا على محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم يا الله. اللهم إنا نسألك وندعوك ونقسم عليك بحق الزهراء وأبيها وبعلها وبنيها والسر المستودع فيها لعن الله ظالميها. اللهم شافي كل مريض. اللهم رد كل غريب. اللهم فك كل أسير. اللهم غير سوء حالنا بحسن حالك يا كريم. اللهم وفقنا لمراضيك وجنبنا معاصيك وثبت أقدامنا على صراطك المستقيم وخذ بأيدينا إليك يا أرحم الراحمين. وفرج عنا يا الله فرجا عاجلا قريبا كلمح البصر وهو أقرب من ذلك. وافرغ علينا صبرا وتوفنا مسلمين. والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein.
चांद को देख के सुहरा ने कहा हाय हुसैन. चांद को देख के सुहरा ने कहा हाय हुसैन. चांद को देख के सुहरा ने कहा हाय हुसैन. चांद को देख के सुहरा ने कहा हाय हुसैन. आ गया माह ए मुहर्रम, आ गया माह ए मुहर्रम. हाँ नहीं आए हुसैन. चांद को देख के सुहरा ने कहा हाय हुसैन. चांद को देख के सुहरा ने कहा حسین یاد پردیس میں آتی ہے لحد اماں کی، یاد پردیس میں آتی ہے لحد اماں کی، دل کا احوال سنانے کو کہاں جائے حسین، چاند کو دیکھ کے سہرا نے کہا ہائے حسین، چاند کو دیکھ کے سہرا کہا ہائے حسین، آپ آئے نہ خبر آئی نہ اکبر آئے، آپ آئے نہ خبر آئی نہ اکبر آئے، کیسے اس حال میں صغرا سے جیا جائے حسین، چاند کو دیکھ کے صغرا نے کہا ہائے حسین، چاند کو دیکھ کے صغرا نے کہا ہائے حسین، جب سے یہ چاند محرم کا نظر آیا ہے، جب سے یہ چاند محرم کا نظر آیا ہے، اماں روتی ہے تجھے اے میرے ماں جائے حسین، چاند کو دیکھ کے سہرا نے کہا ہائے حسین، چاند کو دیکھ کے سہرا نے کہا ہائے، کوئی تصویر تو زہرا کی رہی پردے میں، کوئی تصویر تو زہرا کی رہی پردے میں، یہ تو اچھا ہوا سغرا کو نہیں لائے حسین، چاند کو دیکھ کے سغرا کہا ہائے حسین، چاند کو دیکھ کے سغرا نے کہا ہائے حسین، عید بھی سوگ کے عالم میں گزاری اس نے، عید بھی سوگ کے عالم میں گزاری اس نے، ہائے اکبر کبھی کہتی تھی کبھی ہائے حسین، چاند کو دیکھ کے سہرا نے کہا ہائے حسین، چاند کو دیکھ کے سہرا نے کہا حسین، مستقل شاہ کی آنکھوں سے تھے آنسو جاری، مستقل شاہ کی آنکھوں سے تھے آنسو جاری، خط صغرا کو مکمل نہیں پڑھ پائے حسین، چاند کو دیکھ کے صغرا نے کہا ہائے حسین، چاند کو دیکھ کے صغرا نے کہا حسین، ایک ایک بیٹی سے رخصت ہوئے خیمے میں مگر، ایک ایک بیٹی سے رخصت ہوئے خیمے میں مگر، ہائے افسوس کے صغرا سے نہ مل پائے حسین، چاند کو دیکھ کے صغرا نے کہا ہائے حسین، چاند کو دیکھ کے صغرا نے کہا ہائے حسین، آ گیا ماہ محرم، آ گیا ماہ محرم، ہاں نہیں آئے حسین، چاند کو دیکھ کے صغرا نے कहा हाय हुसैन चांद को
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وحبيبك وصفيك ونبيك وخيرتك من خلقك وحافظ سرك ومبلغ رسالاتك وعلى علي أمير المؤمنين ووصي رسول رب العالمين وعلى الصديقة الطاهرة فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين وعلى سبطي الرحمة وإمامي الهدى الحسن بن علي المجتبى والحسين الشهيد بكربلاء السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتك السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته اللهم وصل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الهادي والمهدي الإمام القائم صاحب العصر والزمان الأمان 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 من زوال الإيمان وفتن الزمان عجل الله تعالى فرجه وسهل الله مخرجه وجعلنا من أنصاره وأعوانه والذابين عنه والمسارعين إليه في قضاء حوائجه والمستشهدين بين يديه جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته صلوات الله